Hello, hello, my podcast friends. I'm back with another episode here on The Little Filly Who Couldn't Be Broke. So, today, the topic that I'm going to speak about is actually courage. Lately, just this past fall, I suppose, I was taking a course. It was just an online, sort of like a Zoom course, a telecourse, or whatever you want to call it now, um, um, on actually children with anxiety. And the reason I took this is because I kind of learned or anticipated or started to kind of realize that my oldest is very sensitive. Like, he's very sensitive, and there are places that started coming up, and this might seem very normal, but places of at nighttime fear of the dark, fear of the storms and wind that happen, any wind that happens because of the tornado that went through. And yes, fear of the dark. So then he talks about ghosts at nighttime. So he doesn't want to go to sleep because of the ghosts. Every time the dog barks, not always during the day, but like if at nighttime and he's awake and the dog barks, he comes running. And there's just these little places that I've started to notice fear of even just like in the bathtub, water in his face. And these, like, they're just normal. I feel they're very normal. I feel like I'm not the only one with a child with these fears. But also they're very normal to me because I grew up with some of the same fears, right? But knowing that, I'm also a very sensitive person, was a very sensitive child. And so it's not just that. There's other places that I've kind of noticed some fears, some anxieties, some just sensitivity, like just sensitive to things going on in our life, sensitive to our emotions, sensitive to lights or sounds or just different random things that I never know when, like, I was going to say his emotions are going to come out, but it's not even just that. His attitude is going to change. Like one moment he might be this playful, confident kid, and the next moment he might be, kind of like shy and reserved and just this unconfident little kid, right? And so I took this course, and this is leading me to my topic on courage. Because through this course, they were talking about kids with anxiety. What we need to do is we need to offer them some courage. We need to ask them. They actually called the exercises, or like the at-home tasks, bravery challenges. Can your kids be brave? Can they find the courage within inside to try these things that make them anxious, right? And they gave a whole spiel on emotions, and they gave a whole spiel on like mind, and how our mind works. And I could go over all of that stuff with you, but that's not entirely exactly, that's not the teaching today. That's not the topic today. Today is just how to find that courage and why we would want to find that courage in the face of fear, or in the face of doubt, or in the face of unconfidence, or in the face of worry, or in the face of, as we're facing these emotions, where do we let our courage show up? And sometimes, and I want to put this out right away, because I want to give you guys permission. I want to give you guys permission to follow those feelings. I want to give you guys permission to honor those feelings. So sometimes that courage is saying no to not necessarily those fears, but let's say I don't have like full confidence driving. So like I'm about three quarters, but so I'm not about to go drive through a winter snowstorm or freezing rain. I have found the courage to say, no, not today. I have the courage to drive, and saying no to myself, keeping myself safe in those instances, keeping myself or honoring myself, honoring those intuitions, honoring that space of me, honoring that fear within me. But on the same token, there's also spaces where, and let's use the driving example, it's not so bad. Yes, there's winter weather, or yes, there's, spring or fall weather. There's dangerous weather. It's still finding that courage within us to put on our coat, jump in our vehicle, and trust ourselves to be able to get to where we need to go. And the way we can do that, the way I do that, and I'm hoping when he gets a little older, although he's very aware right now, it might be just the time to start teaching him about this stuff, is finding the courage within our intuition, but finding that courage because I ask, universe, please keep me safe today. Angels, please be with me while I'm driving. I know I can safely, again, I use my intuition. I know I can safely get myself from my home to my work, or my home to my school, or my home to my family, or wherever, from my family to my home, right? Like from school to my home, from work to my home, from wherever, the store to my home. And I have the courage, I look into my intuition. I ask my intuition, is this going to be safe to travel today? Yes, it's going to be safe to travel today. And then I ask them to be with me. I ask the angels to be with me and the universe to kind of put things in place to keep me safe. I trust and I ask. And on the other side of asking is I do trust. I don't worry the whole way home. I mean, I'm probably a little tense. I'm probably very aware of the conditions around me. And I'm doing everything that I need to do to keep myself and whoever's with me safe, right? So that's just one example. A big one that comes to mind, because I think one of the biggest ones, I don't know what it would be these days, but I know when I was like back in school and in college and they talked about fear all the time, the one they would bring up all the time is public speaking. And they would say, majority of people in the world, their biggest fear is public speaking, like even over like death and stuff like that, is actually public speaking. So to put yourself in front of others and be vulnerable is a big thing. And so that's a place where we need to find courage, or facing those fears, or facing those insecurities, or moving through. And how do we find that courage inside? How do we find that courage? Because I feel like I have a lot of courage, but I also feel like I trust myself and I give myself the space and the time, the place to say, no, this isn't for me. If I'm afraid of heights, am I going to be on a construction crew and build sky scrapers? No, no. And I just give myself, I have the courage to say, no, that's not for me. No, thank you. And I just don't choose to add those things to my life. So there is that space. But if the universe is encouraging you, if they say, yes, this is meant to be in your life, this is something that you're meant to partake in or experience, or if this is a yes for you, then we need to find the courage. Like, let's go back to my son's example of just sleeping in his own room at night. Now, he feels unsafe because of the ghosts and the monsters and everything that's in there. So he needs to find the courage within himself to be able to feel safe in that room, okay? To understand the energies that are going on around him, to understand where those so-called ghosts and monsters are coming from. Honestly, he made me take the clock out of his room because it ticked too loud, like the tick, 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 tick. The clock was too loud and there was a monster in the clock. I tried to explain to him and I got him to like feel the clock and tell him these are just numbers and this is just what tells the time. But he can't tell the time anyways. So I decided to take the clock out to lessen the fear, to make his room feel safe. And when his room can feel safe and comfortable, then maybe he could feel safe and comfortable to sleep in it. And he's been getting better. And we've been working on the courage. We've been working on courage. And it's made me really, really look at my own life and the lives of people around me to just look at, where do I need a little extra courage? And where do I need the courage to say, no, this is not for me? And where do I need the courage to move forward in my life, or to step up a little more, or remove an insecurity, or ask for help, or step into something that I've been really, really wanting to do, but haven't had, the courage to do so, right? The fear has been standing in the way. And so I'm even going to go, after that statement, I'm even going to go into what does itchy nose mean spiritually? Because ever since I sat down in this chair, it hasn't been itchy all morning, but ever since I started talking about this, I have had an itchy nose. So just throwing that out, if you know what itchy nose means. I was going to go into it, and now I forgot what I was talking about. The courage to say no, the courage to step into those things that we know we want to do, like take those big leaps, take those leaps of faith, and really, really step into those big dreams and those big goals, and really have the courage. The courage to be vulnerable. This is where I was going to go with it. I was talking about like the courage to ask for help, but also like, where do we have the courage to be vulnerable? The courage to go inside of ourselves, inside, and really feel the courage, or really feel the fear. Not like, yes, you could feel the courage as well, but I mean, really being vulnerable with what those insecurities are and what those fears really are, and any other feelings, right? Where that anger is sitting within you, where that shame is sitting within you, where all of the other feelings that are coming up for you, really sitting with them, really being with them, really being vulnerable with them, and really having the courage to honor what's going on inside of you, so you can create a different outside, so you can create a different space in your home, in your environment, in your workspace, so you can move through that acceptance, move through that forgiveness, which I know if you've listened to this podcast at all, I've talked about many times. So jump on a different podcast, because I'm bringing it up again here. Having the courage to be vulnerable. So I've given you three things, there we go, to have the courage. The first one, having the courage to say yes, where you need to say yes. The second one, having the courage to say no, where you need to say no. And the third one, having the courage to be vulnerable and really sink into what is going on for you, what's coming up for you, and where you need to shift, where you need to forgive, where you need to accept, where you need to move through, where you need to heal, what really is going on. Where do you feel like the shame in your life? Where do you feel the fear? Where do you feel the fear? If you don't even know where you feel the fear, how can you? And the more we clear this out, and the more we do this work, the clearer the fears become, or I guess I should say all of the emotions, the clearer the emotions become, and the clearer your intuition becomes, the clearer the messages becomes, the more clear the messages become. And so you know when to say yes, and you know when to say no, and you know when to take some time for yourself, and you know when to jump in. So instead of letting the fear win, because those of us, I'm just going to speak to really quick to anxiety and depression real quick from my experience and from the information that I've received, or the knowledge that I have learned in my life. But where I want to speak to this is that fear creates the anxiety, or anxiety and anxious feeling, I mean, I guess can be, I've thought about this quite a bit actually, because people talk about anxiety all the time. And anxiety, when a person's feeling anxiety, they are feeling fear. They're feeling fear. Or they're feeling anxious. They're feeling excited. So but that excited might have like nervousness to it. And when it has nervous to it, that's fear creeping in, but then having the courage to see it through anyways, right? So knowing that anxiety is fear, and knowing that this is the fear that we need to work through. So when our anxiety is coming up, this is what I learned in the course, is that people feel their anxiety coming up and say, no, this isn't for me. And they step out right away. Like they just jump out. No, I'm not going to do that public speaking. I'm not going to drive. I'm not going to, no. And so they don't feel the fear and move through it. So the way to move through, I guess, the anxiety, even heal it. I mean, there's different ways. So I do want to tell you there's different ways, because if you find your anxiety inside and you know what it is, and you move through why it's coming up in the first place, you can just heal it, and then you'll just do the thing. Yeah, there's so many examples I could give for that one. I don't even know where to start. So like, if you find out where your fear of driving comes from in the first place, and then you heal it, you'll just be like, I'm not scared to drive anymore. There's no fear around that. There's no anxiety around that. Let me just get in the vehicle and go. Same with public speaking. Same with sleeping by yourself in the dark, right? For my son who's scared of the monsters in his bedroom. So knowing that anxiety is fear, doing it anyways, feeling the anxiety and doing it anyways is a way to move through it. It's a way to prove to yourself that even if I climb this 5th flight of stairs, I'm not going to fall. So my fear of heights, can take a break. It's okay if I'm on the 5th floor of the hotel, and there's no elevator. It happens. So doing it anyways, the more I walk up and down 5 flights of stairs, feeling the fear, using my courage to get myself to walk up and down those stairs, my body would start to kind of like reprogram itself. It would really start to. So the more you can feel the fear and do it anyways, your body starts to reprogram itself. The other way that I speak about, and I'm very passionate about this, is we can just go into our psyche. We can go into our mind. We can go into our energy. We can go into our inner self and really settle into, why is this coming up in the first place? Remove that experience, or remove that feeling, or remove that the underlying place of the fear, and just get on with life, right? So anxiety is our fear. And we can move through the anxiety by either healing it or doing it anyways. By finding the courage to step out onto the stage, to put the microphone in your hand, to put the video on your face, to show up to the call, to show up to an appointment, to show up to that difficult conversation, to just show up and practice and do it anyways. But we can also find the courage to get vulnerable with ourselves and really sink into, why is this stuff coming up in the first place? What's going on within me that I keep self-sabotaging? I keep, walking away from the opportunities that are really going to be good for me, right? I keep saying no when I should have said yes. And I keep saying yes when I should have said no. So again, finding that intuition, to know what's what. And it's okay if you make a mistake. If you say no to a yes opportunity, the universe is going to be like, dude, here's another one. Here's another one. So it's like, this is your lesson to learn. I'm going to keep putting this in front of you. I'm going to keep putting these opportunities in front of you until you get it. If you're afraid of water and you're supposed to be a marine biologist, I'm going to keep leading you back to the ocean. I'm going to keep leading you back to opportunities that take you back to those places where you can say yes when you need to say yes. Okay? So trust. But that being said, I can't say those opportunities are ever going to run out. You need to trust the universe on that. But you also need to trust yourself that when those opportunities arise, you are there for them. You're trusting the universe will bring those opportunities to you, for you. But you need to show up for those opportunities as well. You need to say yes when those opportunities arise. And that means you also need to say no to the opportunities that are not serving you. Okay? Your fear is keeping you stuck in patterns. And so let me finish this thought. Your fear is keeping you stuck in the patterns that you say no when you're supposed to say yes, and yes when you're supposed to say no. And you're not being honest with yourself and vulnerable with yourself to either clear out the things that need to be cleared, or be clear on your intuitive messages that are trying to come through for you, to be honest about which is a yes and which is no. Okay, so back to that. That's my little tidbit about anxiety. So my other tidbit is about depression. So somebody, I don't even remember, at one point in my life, I heard that depression is just a lack of expression. So if you are not expressing yourself the way that you want to be or need to be, or like you're not letting yourself shine, right? You're holding yourself back. You are, or there is fears or traumas or wounds or hurts or emotions, right? So we need to, again, be vulnerable and dig into and shift through those things. So if you're meant to be, let's just say, talking about hand analysis, is one of the things, is the purpose is artist in the spotlight. If you're meant to be an artist in the spotlight and you're just sitting at home writing in your journal about how you want to be an artist in the spotlight, you're not expressing yourself in the way that the universe is asking you to find courage and show up and be honest and step into that purpose. Step into that full expression of who you are. And if you don't choose those yeses, if you don't choose to step into that full expression of who you are and to express yourself in the way that you are meant to express yourself, whether it be through singing, through writing, through painting, through dance, through ice sculpture, through woodworking, all the ways, that artist in the spotlight, like it could be through website design, honestly, interior design. It could be like just artist in the spotlight means that you have some creativity inside of you in whatever expression way it wants to come out and whatever way it wants to express itself, right? And you do it for the public. It's not just for you. So if you're meant to be an interior designer, if that's the expression that wants to come out, it's not just you rearranging your house, right? Like it's not just you putting out fancy curtains and artwork and using your skills and knowledge for yourself is what I'm trying to say. Designing your own home, it's meant to be serving the world or just the public in some way. Honestly, it could be family and friends, and that could be enough of an expression. It could be just your one little community. It could be, just you draw like a bigger circle around you, whether that be a province or state or something like that, or the country you're in, or something like that. So you could go a little bit wider, like larger than just your community. And you could be a world renowned interior designer if that's the expression that you're called to do, right? But you can't just sit at home. That's self-sabotage. So that would be not expressing yourself as the artist in the spotlight. Now, this is just one example. Whatever your life purpose is meant to be, whatever your soul is called to do, whatever your person, your inner self, your higher self, your God-made, God-created self, your spirit wants to express itself in some way. How does your spirit want to express itself? And what is stopping you from doing that? And now, there might be a journey from where you are today listening to this podcast being like, damn, I need to start expressing myself in the way that I need to express myself. Because I have found myself sitting here in a bit of a depressed state, right? So it's just like depression, a lack of expression, right? So there might be a journey for you that you have to go through, a healing journey, a self-discovery journey, an unraveling or a blooming or a blossoming, a growth process that you need to go through to get from where you are today to where you are going. And honestly, it probably never stops because you keep creating and like your life. So whatever, I was talking about artists in the spotlight, so I was talking about creativity. But honestly, there's so many different purposes. There's so many different expressions of being, right? Every single person has a different individuality. So whoever you are meant to be expressing yourself, or however you're meant to be expressing yourself, or wherever you're meant to be expressing yourself, there could be a journey, a healing journey of unraveling and discovering that. And it's probably never ending as you create your life in the way that is purposeful and courageous and vulnerable, and you start saying yeses to your yeses and noes to your noes, and you really start to stand up for yourself, and you really start to sink into or step into who you are and who you're meant to be. Oh, all right. Huge conversation on courage. I have been thinking about courage a lot lately in all different aspects, where we can hold it, where we can show up with courage, and how even the small things in life are still courageous, right? Even those small decisions in life are still filled with courage, because you could choose something other than what you just courageously chose. As I talked about, one healing session or like one healing experience, because it doesn't have to be a session per se, right? One healing experience could be a form of courage. One habit change, right? In the way of like getting up earlier or eating better or exercising more or making that courageous phone call to your grandma who you haven't talked to in 5 years or 10 years or however long it may be, right? One courageous act, I was going to say, can be life-changing, and it definitely can be. But just because you wake up at 6 o'clock one morning isn't probably going to change your life for forever, right? It's probably those habit changes, that courage to say, this is the time that I need to get up in the morning so I can accomplish what I'm set out to accomplish. That habit change, the courage to make that change in your life, the courage to show up for the healing, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to speak yes, the courage to say no, the courage to move forward in the way that you are meant to express yourself and you're made to step into yourself, the courage to understanding your fear, the courage to understanding your fears is going to be huge. It's going to be huge. And then honestly, okay, so I'm not here to teach you the whole course that I learned on this. But the thing that they taught us is anxiety is just fear. The second thing that they taught us is there was this like curvature that it's just kind of like when you feel the anxiety and then you step away, you kind of keep going in this loop. But if you feel the courage and do it anyways, you kind of start to get out of it, right? Like you got to practice and keep practicing and keep stepping out of that fear. Or just like, as I mentioned, you could also just get to the bottom of it and continue to move through it that way. The third thing that they told us is it's not perfection. We're not going for perfection. We're going for progress. And so with our little kiddos, because this was an anxiety course for like toddlers, preschool kind of ages. So with our little kiddos, just having them have the courage to do the next best step. So it's not like if the courage was to sleep in his own bed, it could be like there's this tiny step to get him to, maybe nap in his bed during the day when he doesn't even want to do that, right? Hang out and play in his bedroom, or move through and talk about what you can do to remove the monsters and the ghosts or those fears. Because as we were on this course, and I'm not sure exactly how many people were in the course. There was about 3 or 4 of us online, but you could also go in person, doesn't matter. So I don't know how many, but however many of us were talking about our little kiddos, each and every one of us had a different scenario. So what I'm saying is you are going to have a different scenario, and your next best steps, your tiny little steps, are going to be different than my next best steps or my kiddo's next best steps or, my best friend's next steps in their scenario as well, right? So finding your tiny next best steps. I'm here today and I want to get to hear, what is that next best step? What is the courage? What do I have the courage to do today that will lead me to where I want to go tomorrow and next year and the next year, and help me move through the fears that I'm feeling, the anxiety that's coming up, and so I don't just stay stuck, right? So I can be vulnerable, so I can trust myself, so I can show up for myself, and really taking the time to understand your intuition, but also understand your situation. Be honest with yourself, because that honesty will help you move through what's actually coming up. If you don't actually know or get to the bottom of the fear, you're not honest with yourself that you even are in fear about something, you can't change it. If you don't even know something's happening, you're not going to change it. So being honest with yourself is very, very important. It is the first best step in finding the courage. If you're honest with what's going on, you can find the courage and step into the courage of those tiny, tiny little steps. Wherever you're, this actually is bringing me back to the example of yoga, and kind of like, how you stretch your body, even if you guys haven't done yoga, but how when you're doing yoga, you're stretching your body. You understand that much. So as a yoga teacher, or as I was going through my yoga teacher training, if I can't do a headstand, I'm not even going to really try to do a headstand. You do the next best step, right? So you work your body, you work your muscles, and it's kind of like that, building new habits, and you work your strength up. Because if today I can do this much, or weightlifting, I know nothing about weightlifting, but this makes sense in my head, right? If you start with 1 pound or half a pound, and you can do that for a week or 2 weeks, and then you go to the next level, you start to build your strength. So all I'm talking about here is starting to build your courage strength, starting to build that strength of trusting yourself, being honest with yourself, and choosing for yourself, and building the strength of your courage. Okay, so you understand the whole concept of practice. You understand the whole concept of strength building. You understand the whole concept of next best step, next best step, next best step, right? Learning as you go. The person talking with her hands just knocked over her mic. So learning as you go and continuing to take the steps that are the next best steps. I didn't want to say it the same way again, but building your courage strength, building your strength of your courage. And if it feels okay to, lift the 2-pound weights, well, let's go to the 3-pound weights, and you keep lifting. If you're lifting 10-pound weights or 100-pound weights, just go to the next best step. I am not going to start weightlifting at 100 pounds. I'm going to start at half a pound, I'm pretty sure. So you just start where you're at and you keep going, but you have to have the courage to keep going and keep building that strength, keep building that inner strength. And just keep building upon your honesty, upon your vulnerability, upon that healing journey and that journey of moving through. But if you don't step into the courage, you're not moving through. You're starting to stay stagnant, and then you're gonna start to stop expressing yourself. If you stop expressing yourself in the way that you're meant to express yourself or show up for yourself, then you're going to fall into that place of anxiety. You're going to fall into that place of depression. You're going to fall into the place of your mind's not going to be at peace. Your body's not going to be at peace. Your emotions aren't going to be at peace. And you're going to have to, I was going to say start all over again, but start from the place from where you're at. Okay. I want to give you one last permission. Just by saying that, it's okay if you're stuck. There are many times, I'm going to end on this one. There are so many times that I have gotten stuck, that I have had to, whatever you want to call it, start over. But I've had the courage to start over. There's so many times that I've had to, that I feel like you kind of fall down, but it's or stay stagnant or just kind of lose yourself. And it's okay. You have to give yourself permission to be there as well. And then just start from where you're at. Because I started to realize, and I think I told you guys this at one point, I started to realize a lot of people look at it as a spiral, but you're spiraling up. I actually look at mine as a staircase. So there's usually this huge up leveling and then a little bit of stagnation as you're getting used to and embodying that up leveling that you're at. And then, so there's a little bit of stagnation. You have to just kind of keep on the courage to just stay there or keep implementing that, right? Keep going to the gym, keep waking up at whatever time you choose to, keep going to school if that's what you chose to do, keep sleeping in the bedroom at dark to keep that courage up, right? The more we practice where we're at, we continue to stay at that level. And when we continue to stay at that level, there's usually a place where it kind of becomes embodied, and then it's up leveling again. So let's just, staircase, kind of stay stagnant and starting to embody and just kind of normal, but you have to keep choosing it. And then you up level and you get to the next step, and that up leveling is hard, and you kind of get to that place right before you up level. I usually get to some kind of breakdown before I get to some kind of breakthrough. So I'm kind of stagnant, or practicing the last up level, right? Practicing where I got to in in the last experience or the last situation, or just kind of staying where I'm at now. And then it's like something happens, there's usually some kind of breakdown saying this needs to change, or something is shifting. Something is shifting for me. And then all of a sudden I'm up leveling, and then there's a new plateau of the new normal. And that's how I find my life goes. But however it feels for you is perfectly normal and perfectly fine. If that resonates for you, that's fine. If it doesn't, maybe you like the spiral one where you keep going up, but you're going in a circle. So it feels like you're walking in circles, or you're going in circles, but you're actually up leveling at the same time. However you visualize that, however you picture it, totally normal for you. Yeah, I think that's where I wanted to end off. I want to say that keep on with the courage. It's okay if you fall back. It's okay if you kind of have a breakdown or breakthrough. It's okay if you find yourself even falling back a little bit and just having the courage to pick yourself up. Okay, like put your running shoes back on and get in the game, right? It's okay. Those fallbacks are usually the up leveling. That's why, and I know I've mentioned this before, this is where I wanted to end off. This is where I was getting to, is my breakdowns are, I'm sorry if you can hear that. I was like pounding on the desk. My breakdowns are my breakthroughs. My breakdowns are my breakthroughs. So I absolutely do not get mad at myself or shame myself or whatever for falling back or breaking down or finding myself in those tough times, those turmoils, because those are your breakthrough spots. Those are the next places that you need to find your courage. Okay, I have loved this conversation on courage today. If you guys have anything to add to it, any questions, comments, you know where to find me. You can always email or find me on social media. You can go check out my website. There should be a contact me form on there. And if it doesn't work, my email should be on there as well, but it's just roxanne.valier@gmail.com. So super easy. So that's where that contact form would go. You could just send it to me direct. Yeah. I love this conversation today. So if you have anything to add, that's awesome. That's awesome. I hope you guys go out and you find your courage and you step into the next best steps for you. You step into the next best actions for you. You start to say yes where you need to say yes. And you start to say no where you need to say no. And you start to get so vulnerable with yourself, so honest with yourself, that you understand why and what's happening for you. You understand where these anxieties are coming from. You understand where these fears are coming from. And you kind of know what's going on inside of you, so you can find the courage to move forward. All right. I'll see you guys on the next podcast.